The Fight Between the Doryl and the Mocca. Reading from Great Pirate Stories by Joseph Louis French, as read to you by me, Mars.
These truly representeth the scheme of what misfortunes befell us as we were going through the straits of Mocca, in the pursuance to our pretended voyage. Wednesday, the 7th July, 5 o'clock morning, we espied a ship to windward. As soon as was well light, perceived her to bear down upon us. We thought at first she had been a Dutchman bound for Chin or Bengal, when perceived she had no galleries. Did then suppose her to be what after, to our dreadful sorrow, found her. We got our ship in the best posture of defense that sudden emergent necessity would permit. We kept good looking out, expecting to see an island called Puerto Varillo, but as then we saw it not. About 8 o'clock, the ship came up fairly within shot. Saw in room of all galleries there was large sally ports, and each of which was a large gun, seemed to be brass. Her taffrail was likewise taken down. We, having done what possibly could to prepare ourselves, fearing might be suddenly set on, ordered our people to their respective stations for action. We now hoisted our colours. The captain commanded to nail our ensign to the staff in sight of the enemy, which was immediately done. As they perceived we hoisted our colours, they hoisted theirs with the Union Jack, and let fly a broad red pendant at their main topmast head. The pirate being now in little more than half pistol shot from us.
Ooh. Wait a second. Sorry to interrupt myself here, but I'm realizing that this is written from the perspective of people coming under the attack of pirates, and is not being written from the perspective of pirates themselves. So I'm going to continue the story, but I think I'm going to read it, because I think it'd be more in character, with the voice of Captain Smollett instead. The pirate being now in little more than half pistol shot from us, we could discern abundance of men who went aft to the quarter deck, which as we supposed was to consult. They stood as we stood, but we spoke neither to other. At noon it fell calm, so that we were afraid should by the sea have been hove on one another. At 1 o'clock sprang up a gale. The pirate kept as we kept. At 3 o'clock the villain backed her sails, and they went from us. We kept close hauled, having a contrary wind from Mocca. When the pirate was about 7 miles distant, tacked and stood after us. At 6 that evening, saw the looked-for island, and the pirate came up with us on our starboard side within shot. We see he kept a man at each topmast head, looking out till it was dark. Then he hailed a little from us, but kept us company all night. At 8 in the morning he drew near us, but we had time to mount our other 4 guns that were in hold, and now we were in the best posture of defense could desire. He drawing near us, and seeing that if we would, we could not get from him, he far outsailing us by our large in one direction or another. The captain resolved to see what the rogue would do, so ordered to hand and furl all our small sails, and furled our mainsail. He, seeing this, did the like, and as he drew near us, beat a drum and sounded trumpets, and then hailed us 4 times before we answered him. At last, it was thought fit to know what he would say, so the boatswain spoke to him as was ordered, which was that we came from London. Then he inquired whether peace or war with France. Our answer, there was a universal peace through Europe, at which they paused and then said, "That's well." He further inquired if had touched at Chin. We said a boat came off to us, but we came not near it by several leagues. Further he inquired our captain's name and whither we were bound. We answered to Mocca. They too, and would have had the captain gone aboard to drink a glass of wine. We said that we would see one another at Mocca. Then he called to lie by, and he said he would come aboard us. Our answer was as before, saying it was late. He said true it was for China, and inquired whether should touch at the water islands. We said should. Then said he, so shall we. After he had asked us all these questions, we desired to know from whence he was. He said from London, their captain named Colliford, the ship named the Resolution, bound for China. This Colliford had been gunner's mate at Bombay, and after run away with the ketch. Thus passed the 8th July, Friday the 9th due, he being some distance from us, about half an hour after 10 came up with us. Then it grew calm. We could discern a fellow on the quarter deck wearing a sword. As he drew near, this hellish imp cried, "Strike, you dogs!" which we perceived was not by a general consent, for he was called away. Our boatswain in a fury run upon the poop, unknown to the captain, and answered that we would strike to no such dogs as he, telling him the rogue Every and his accomplices were all hanged. The captain was angry that he spake without order, then ordered to hail him, and asked what was his reason to dog us. One stepped forward on the forecastle, beckoned with his hand, and said, "Gentlemen, we want not your ship nor men, but money." We told them had none for them, but bid them come up alongside and take it as could get it. Then a parcel of bloodhound rogues clashed their cutlasses, and said they would have it or our heart's blood, saying, "What do you know not us to be the Mocca?" Let me try that line again. "What, do you not know us to be the Mocca?" Our answer was yes. Yes. Thereon they gave a great shout, and so they all went out of sight, and we to our quarters. They were going to hoist colors, but the ensign halyards broke, which our people, perceiving, gave a great shout, so they let them alone. As soon as they could bring their chase guns to bear, fired upon us, and so kept on our quarter. Our guns would not bear in a small space, but as soon as did hap, gave them better than the pirates did like. His second shot carried away our sprit sail yard. About half an hour after or more, he came up alongside, and so we powered in upon him and continued, sometime broadsides and sometimes 3 or 4 guns as opportunity presented and could bring them to do best service. He was going to lay us athwart the hawse, but by God's providence, Captain Hyde frustrated his intent by pouring a broadside into him, which made him give back and go astern, where he lay and paused without firing, then in a small space fired 1 gun. The shot came in at our roundhouse window without damage to any person, after which he filled and bore away, and when was about 1/4 mile off, fired a gun to leeward, which we answered by another to windward. About an hour after he tacked and came up with us again. We made no sail, but lay by to receive him, but he kept aloof off. The distance at most in all our firing was never more than 2 ships' length. The time of our engagement was from half an hour after 11 till about 3 afternoon. When we came to see what damage we had sustained, found our chief mate, Mr. Smith, wounded in the leg close by the knee, with a splinter or piece of chain, which cannot well be told. Our barber had 2 of his fingers shot off, as was sponging one of our guns. The gunner's boy had his leg shot off in the waist. John Amos, quartermaster, had his leg shot off while at the helm. The boatswain's boy, a lad of 13 years old, was shot in the thigh, which went through and splintered his bone. The armorer, Joss Osborne, in the roundhouse, wounded by a splinter just in the temple. The captain's boy on the quarter deck, a small shot razed his skull through his cap, and was the first person wounded and at the first onset. Reynolds' boy had the brim of his hat half shot off, and his forefinger splintered very sorely. John Blake, Turner, the flesh of his leg and calf, a great part shot away. Our ship's damage is the mizzen topmast shot close by the cap, and it was a miracle it stood so long and did not fall in the rogue's sight. Our rigging shot that had but 1 running rope left clear, our main shrouds 3 on one side, 2 on the other, cut in 2. Our mainyard, 10 feet from the mast by a shot cut 8 inches deep, our foretopmast backstays shot away, a great shot in the roundhouse, 1 on the quarter deck and 2 of the roundhouse shot came on the said deck. several in the steerage betwixt decks and in the forecastle, 2 in the bread room, which caused us to make much water, and damaged the greatest part of our bread. They dismounted one of our guns in the roundhouse, 2 in the steerage, 2 in the waist, 1 in the forecastle, with abundance more damage which may seem tedious to rehearse. Their small shot were most Tim and Toothenage. They fired pieces of glass bottles, teapots, chains, stones, and whatnot, which were found on our decks. We could observe abundance of great shot to have passed through the rogue's foresail, and our hope is to have done that to him which will make him shun having to do with any Europe ship again. At night we perceived kept close their lights. We did the like and lay by. In the morning they were as far off as we could discern upon deck. We sent up to see how they stood, which was right with us. In the night we knotted our rigging, and in the morning made all haste to repair our carriages. Our men, seeing they stood after us, we could perceive their countenances to be dejected. We cheered them what we could, and for their encouragement the captain and we of our proper money did give them to every man and boy $3 each, which animated them, and promised to give them as much more if engaged again, and that if we took the ship, for every prisoner £5, and besides a gratuity from the gentlemen employers. We read the king's proclamation about every and the right honorable companies. About 9 o'clock the 10th July we perceived the rogue made from us, so we gave the Almighty our most condign thanks for his mercy that delivered us not to the worst of our enemies, for truly he, the pirate, was very strong, having at least 100 Europeans on board, 34 guns mounted, besides 10 patterers and 2 small mortars in the head. His lower tier, some of them, as we judged, 16 and 18 pounders. We lay as near our course as could, and next day saw land on our starboard side, which was the mainland, kept on our way. The 12th July died the boatswain's boy, George Mop, in the morning. Friday the 16th due in the evening died the gunner's boy, Thomas Matthews. Sunday the 18th at anchor 2 leagues from the Pillow Sumbelong Islands died the barber, Andrew Miller. The 31st died the chief mate, Mr. John Smith. The other 2 are yet in a very deplorable condition, and we are ashore here to refresh them. The Chinese further report the Mocca was at the Maldives, and careened, there they gave an end to the life of their commanding rogue Stout, who they murdered for attempting to run away. The end.